Thank you for joining me today for this fireside chat. We are going to talk about redefining productivity, employee engagement, and of course, cost savings and the latest developments with teams. Today, I'm in great company. Connie Welsh and Steven Karachinsky are joining me. And before we dive in, I'd love for you both to introduce yourselves. Connie, would you like to go first?
Absolutely. Thank you, Lisa, for having me. I am Connie Welsh. I am a principal global black belt in the Americas. That does not mean I have any ninja skills. However, I do have 18 plus years of experience delivering solutions to our customers, building solutions, developing strategies, not only for phone system, but also for teams and for AI solutions. Over to you, Stephen.
Thanks, Connie. My name is Steven Karachinsky, CEO and co-founder of Ziro. And we're super excited to be here today because we are very focused on conversations and everything around unified communications. Our mission as a company is to make every conversation count because we believe that voice and all of the conversations that are happening across an organization, whether externally or internally, are a really undervalued asset in organizations. There's so many conversations that get lost, they're misaligned, they don't really go anywhere. We're on a mission to change that. And so we want to make sure that every call, every meeting, every message leads to clarity, action, and progress. So super excited to have this conversation with you all today.
And my name is Liza Amlani, and I'm the principal and co-founder of Retail Strategy Group. I work with market-leading retailers and brands, helping them improve profitability and organizational effectiveness. I started on the shop floor and ended up in the buying office. So I'm very excited for today's conversation. So today we're going to talk about redefining productivity, employee engagement, and of course, cost savings and the latest developments with teams. So we want the audience to think about simple solutions in improving how they work and how they connect. So let's dive into question 1. Now, no matter the industry, providing exceptional customer service will have a positive effect on the business, no matter the business. So how does something as simple as updating a traditional telephone system, how is that impactful? Stephen, did you want to take this?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a really big question and almost a little bit of loaded that we can go in a lot of different directions. When I think about what you're asking, I really think about how we think about phone systems today. And in a traditional world, that phone system is that kind of thing on the side. We make some phone calls, but it's not really integrated in the business. The biggest difference today, moving into cloud and leveraging really a platform like Microsoft, is that it really unifies communications through organizations so everyone can communicate as one company, as one team. And that is not easy when your telephony is siloed outside. And by getting everybody aligned on the same system, accessible, so that you can communicate with the right individual, the right expert when you need to, it saves a lot of time, leads to much better experiences and service for customers, and even internally when you're working with an organization. We think about things like employee experience, making it easier for them to do their job, empowering them with the tools so they can be as productive and create the right kind of environment so they can do their jobs really well. That also comes into play here as well when we're migrating to a cloud environment such as Microsoft Teams. There's cost savings availability. So there's so many different benefits that a customer can reap and really bring it into the forefold. And I know we're probably going to get into talking about AI later, but starting to think about your phone system, not as just a communication tool, but all of that rich, valuable data that's inherent in the system. And how can we leverage that to improve customer service, to understand, what our customers need and what they want, to ensure we are providing the right information back to them. There's a ton of benefits when you look at moving into the cloud.
Connie, I know you are going to love this question, so I'm going to pass it over to you, and maybe you could also give us an example.
Absolutely. And I 100% underscore what Stephen just mentioned. We're seeing communications become ubiquitous, right? So it doesn't matter what device, whether it's a mobile phone, whether it's a PC, whether it's an actual physical phone, communication is just embedded as part of the user experience. Going back to what Stephen said, our frontline workers, specifically in retail, have been excluded primarily from this experience. And they are a very valuable member as part of this retail environment to ensure that they have the right tools, the right capabilities, and to be able to do their jobs better and more efficiently. Thinking about where we were from a traditional phone system with a phone hanging on a wall in the middle of a retail center, and they hear it ring and then they have to drop everything they're doing to go grab that phone quickly. That's not a great customer service experience. Using devices that they're already using, like a Zebra device, as they're scanning in, inventory, or walking around assisting another customer, helping them find the right aisle that they need in order to locate a product. They can do all of it from that simple device. They can use things like walkie-talkie so they don't have to have a separate device. That all goes back to the cost savings that Stephen was mentioned too, because if I have to have a theatrical device to be able to radio in between, or another separate phone to be able to go speak, now I've got all of these devices. I have to sign into them. I have to learn how to use them. Whereas communications is embedded in part of the workflows that they're already doing, and thinking about imagining that business. Now, we do have a customer specifically. They have multiple languages in their organization. They call Teens Everywhere, All Languages, TEAL, because now they can all communicate regardless of the language that they have. And I know we're going to talk about AI being embedded in this later. AI has been embedded inside of Teams since 2017. So it understands who Lisa and Steven are talking to the most, so that I can bubble up those conversations and make it a more rich experience. Additionally, we're layering over AI to do things like translating services in real time. So you can speak your language, Lisa, I can speak my language, and we can talk in real time or near real time in our own languages and be able to understand and communicate with each other. So as we think about that traditional telephone number that is now transferred to a user-specific use case and scenario, I not only improve the user experience, but I also help my management team, who is trying to build out solutions and think about cost savings as the innovation continues to advance. It provides that single platform for that rich experience.
It's really about simplifying, isn't it? Your entire workflow, entire business model. Now, I come from the shop floor. I was working on the storefront, and I also worked in the buying office. So I could just imagine the use cases, and I can't wait to dive into that. So let's talk a little bit about retail profit margins. Now, they're just getting tighter and tighter. So where would we see the biggest efficiency unlock today? Store ops, supply chain, omni-channel customer care. Steven, let's start with you.
Sure. So, Lisa, there's a bit of a all of the above, and I think when you really dig into this stuff, there's not the one silver bullet. It's really capturing the benefits across all of those, um, you know, business opportunities, if you will. Let's just start from kind of foundational on the business side, talking about cost. There's so many opportunities to take cost out of the business on these moves, that not enough companies are taking advantage of. We see on average, when we do a move from a traditional phone system to the cloud, on average, customers are saving about 50% of what their telephony costs used to be. And there's a couple of reasons. One, in a lot of cases, especially with Microsoft, and this is part of the benefit of working with Microsoft, is that a lot of the licenses a customer may already have. So instead of, buying two phone systems or paying for two phone systems, they only need to pay for one. And then you compound that with maintenance costs, support and operations, that really extends and becomes, significantly expensive. So there's hard dollar cost that can take out of there. Then we start talking about devices. Connie gave a couple of examples before. There's cases in a lot of retail locations or healthcare or any frontline situation where they want to collapse and consolidate the devices they're using on their mobile devices. That is so easy to do today with a move to the cloud, because the same application is sitting on your desktop, on your mobile phone, on your tablet, whatever is the most appropriate device for you to be using. So there's costs that can come out of there. There's also, with some of the new models of how this stuff is priced, even to reduce on telephony usage. Not everybody is using the actual, phone lines, PSTN, as much as they were using in the past. We see, as much as communications are up, actual phone PSTN usage is down about 25-30% on average. We see a customer. So there's telco consolidation that could be done, and even so many more flexible models from, pay for use, pay per consumption, that become really, really interesting. And then once, I'll pass the mic over to Connie in a sec, but once we start then integrating, so those are some rudimentary, hard cost savings we can look at. But then when we start integrating with, core business applications like CRMs, some of the ITSM systems you're using, or core, foundational, what would be like in an ERP, there's a huge, huge productivity savings. And we've seen some really interesting things in healthcare, even when we're integrating with some of those core applications like Epic or CRMs for on the retail side, where you just end up saving so much time translating notes into a system when automatically the recording and transcription can fall into the right account or CRM account, and just makes things so much more streamlined and easier. Connie, I didn't want to maybe steal some of your thunder, but I'm sure you have some examples there that can piggyback on that.
Yeah, Stephen hit a lot of those main points and things that we're seeing with customers, especially around the platform consolidation instead of best of breed. Why have one application for chat, another one to go do your document integration, another one to go do your meetings, and yet another one to go do your phone service when all of these modalities are really blending together? And as a user, I don't even really see the difference between those anymore. If you have all of these applications, you're paying for them separately. You're paying to integrate them, right? And it's a challenge for IT to be able to do that, as well as now you have to manage each one of these platforms. You have to have DLP. You have to have all of those governance and compliance pieces behind it too. Not to mention, from an end user experience, I have to now contextually switch between all of these. And where do I find this button? And how do I do this right? It just adds unnecessary complexity. So to that point, Stephen, you're spot on, and we're seeing that across a lot of customers. One customer example I'd like to share that really talks around some of the store operations and supply chain, et cetera, is when you think about retail stores. We have one customer. They had 8,500 stores. They recognized a cost savings just simplifying their phone system from a call manager on-prem to using a cloud-based solution, saving $50 million. It's just hardware and infrastructure. There's no benefit or anything to a user in that circumstance, and actually moving to Teams help them with their user experience because now they could shift over to mobile phones and Zebra devices and things like that. Additionally, because they're able to now integrate workflow optimization. So think about how you set up your integrated voice response system. So I can set my own store hours. I might have a snowstorm today. Well, I don't want to have to call IT to then go update my IVR recording, right? Or if I have some specials I want to run, each one of those retail store managers can do it on their own and set that up in advance. Additionally, as I come in as an employee, I can now participate in the response group. So if I'm working in the meat department, I can have a phone or have it easily shifted, the call shifted to me so that I can take that call independently, right? Instead of knowing, and then in the afternoon, I might be in a different department, but I can easily jump in between those different response agents, those hunt groups, if you will, and across any of those devices. So cost savings, simplification for the end user, incorporating those frontline employees, and then also a better customer experience because I'm able to reach who I need the quickest.
And this is really industry agnostic because as we simplify the way that we're working, we're improving efficiencies and we are increasing profitability, right? It is about the bottom line. Now, you brought up something that I think is so important, which is around retail and the frontline associates. So, empowering those associates to place and receive calls on their existing devices and translating into faster customer service and higher sales conversion. Connie, maybe you could speak a little bit about this. I know you also have a great example for us.
Yeah, absolutely. As we think about those frontline employees, they really are critical to the business. So taking away some of those things that might be rote tasks, where these can now be integrated into workflows, is really, really critical to helping them to be more efficient. The other thing is, as you think about these frontline workers, one of the things that we see specifically is onboarding, right? So, as there's high turnover, so being able to have an intuitive, simplistic way to be able to manage shared devices, potentially a single bring your own device strategy, you're able to get those employees up and running quickly. It used to take anywhere from 10 to 15 days for someone to be assigned a phone number or to teach them how to use the existing phone system, right? Oh, you need to dial a 9 to get an outside line and blah, blah, blah. You do not have to do that anymore. So these are perfect examples of where they can be integrated into the workflow. Also, as you think about skills-based solutions, so finding that expert who speaks a certain language, for example, these things all become much, much simpler because you're able to leverage the capabilities that come in a cloud-based solution that leverage AI already embedded in the system to be able to locate those experts in your organization.
To really like speed and response time too,
I'd
right?
I'd even add, Lisa,
Absolutely.
if you don't mind, just like when you think
Of
about the
course.
frontline worker and the mobile nature of, what they're going through on their daily basis, there's some kind of, I would say, hidden gems or some underlying assets around, the telephony and communications that the businesses doesn't regard. And the phone number is one in particular that I think it's important to highlight to hear to everybody on the call. Those frontline workers whose customers are reaching out to them directly on those numbers, considering all of uh, the volatility and, people change jobs so much on the retail side of things. If a customer is calling, a sales associate in any business and they have their mobile number and then that sales associate goes and leaves to a competitor or someone else, there's a good chance of the business losing out on that customer because they call back that sales associate. Being able with some of these new cloud strategies and how they manage numbers and particularly on mobile devices to hold those numbers as assets so that regardless of, moves people make, we ensure that the customer still reaches the business and can take that next call to make that additional sale, address the customer service issue, do that add-on, whatever it may be, is a critical thing that a lot of companies miss out on, and they feel a little bit vulnerable on the frontline worker side. This kind of keeps everybody even keel and ensures the integrity of that assets maintained with the business. So there's some subtle things that people don't think about on the retail side, but become really, really impactful from a sales perspective. So just something to think about that on the cloud side. It makes it so much easier.
Yeah, it is almost like a safety net, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Well, Stephen, I have a question specific to you, actually. How have you seen Teams Phone reduce downtime on manufacturing or accelerating incidents response? Now, we can talk about any industry, it's not just retail. So I'd love to touch on other industries if you have examples.
Yeah. So, so it's very similar to what Connie was mentioning before. And I think it applies. We've seen it happen in healthcare. We've seen it on the distribution and manufacturing side significantly. The ability to reach the right person the first time or get quick access to see who's available and reach them on any device, even set up these emergency kind of call groups ahead of time is the biggest way. The biggest challenge that we've seen that gets in the way of clearing up an emergency or an incident is getting decision making from the right people. And there's no more difficult way when you have to scramble and figure out who's on which team, how do I reach them, what number are they at, what device would they possibly be carrying. It's a different system. When everything is integrated onto the same platform, and it's the same way to reach somebody just simply by clicking on an application or pushing this on your phone, um, that we've seen has made the biggest difference. And when you're talking about saving 15, 20 minutes within an emergency, there's potential for, millions and millions of dollars in savings, especially when there's downtime in these situations. The other aspect that I think is important to realize and take note of with a cloud service is that the redundancy is almost inherently built into the service. So when we're thinking in an old world, you had to build up, physical devices, layer multiple servers in multiple data centers, in multiple geographies. It's very, very expensive, A, to purchase, but then to maintain, test, ensure that it's reliable and up. There's a lot of different components, and there's so many different single points of failure. On the cloud side, um, inherently built into the infrastructure, especially when you're talking about Microsoft and Azure, the redundancy is inherently built in across their data centers around the globe. And so the opportunity for this to be down is really next to nothing. They're one of the few organizations globally in the cloud space that have actual 5 nines of reliability. Most people don't know that about Microsoft. There's maybe only one other true 5 9 provider, which puts Microsoft, shows how much they care about being reliable. Inherently within those things, it makes a big difference in an emergency or critical situation.
Thank you, Steven. Connie, you mentioned that global brands need or even any organization, they really need a phone system that has no borders. Now, I love the way you put this. Can you share a concrete example for us on how a centralized administration in Teams Phone simplify moves, ads, changes across multiple countries? And if you can describe even that real-time language translation that you mentioned earlier, that would be also something great that the audience could, I think, relate to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Stephen really hit hard on it. I think back to my early days in phone system, I had to set up high availability in a data center, do it in the other data center, and then I had to determine too how I did business continuity for failback in case one of them cratered and black holed, right? It was a nightmare to set up. The other thing of it is media reliability. I had to figure out all of the network components and ensure that I had things done not only on the server side, but also on the client side and everything in between, right? And two, when you have network changes, there's a lot of things that can impact that ability to prioritize that high quality audio and video experience that you want. Because we are a cloud-based solution, we have media relays all over the world. So wherever you are, you can get onto the network very quickly in one of those media relays, and then you're on the backbone with billions of dollars of investments in these data centers across the world. So the experience is high quality. Additionally, we have built in things to the audio and video stack to ensure that that quality is high, given there are latent networks. We know that, right? And some of those things, it is already built into the product. So you don't have to do that. When you think about moves, ads, and changes, because most of your employees also get an identity when they are a Microsoft user and they also have access to Teams, automatically being able to add them into your organization. And if you need to assign them a phone number, great. If you don't need to assign a phone number, right, they're using voice over IP that is internal to their existence. But when I onboard that employee, I can ensure that they are assigned a phone number. So it doesn't matter where they are in the world, I have the ability to assign reach. And it doesn't matter if I'm using Microsoft calling plans as a first party service or if I'm bringing my own calling plans. We know that many customers already have investments and long term contracts with third parties. So you can easily bring your own number as well. So that takes care of all of those administrative challenges that most of our IT folks have. When I think about that real time language translation, this is something I actually use at Microsoft quite a bit. I have customers in Montreal. They all speak in French. They ask me to join a meeting and present to them, but they want me to speak French. I know parlez-vous français, and I know understand parlez-vous français. So we easily are able to converse back and forth using Translator in Copilot. Now, that is not a Teams phone solution, but it is a solution that comes with our AI and Copilot. Also, I jump on calls in Brazil where we're speaking Portuguese, English, sometimes French, as well as Spanish. We all speak in our own language and we understand each other very, very well. So, those are some of the things that are definitely contributing for that ability and seamless communication across different areas. I will say, too, manufacturing is one of those areas where we see this a lot. I was mentioning the Teams Everywhere, All Languages. We have a customer who is in manufacturing. They have 20 different languages. in their manufacturing plant. There was challenges around safety and compliance because they had to print everything in all of those languages, and sometimes they had to be updated daily, and it was paper coming in that they had to do it. Now they do it across the different devices. They can send one update, they get translated into their own language of choice on their device. Much, much simpler, and it's in real time. You don't have to go somewhere, it comes to you. So those are just a few areas where I definitely see that cross-border simplicity for our back-end IT pros who are trying to deliver solutions, but also from a user experience.
Incredible time savings. Wow.
Huge.
Yeah.
And Lisa, maybe just to add one more thing on that, I think highlighting this notion of simplicity, as Connie said, and speed are some of the key things that businesses need to kind of recognize as the additional value here, because every business today, competition is as fierce as ever. The world is smaller. Everybody's fighting for that edge. And in this case, by consolidating into the cloud, um, we're really not doubling up resources anymore. And so many companies are spending so much time today on security for all the right reasons. We don't have to go in there, on compliance and governance of their users, of their data. The beauty about migrating these systems into a centralized format into the cloud is all of that work then gets to benefit on the communication side as well. Instead of doubling up all that effort, it's already done. And so leveraging all of that work is a huge benefit for customers. One, to keep them safe, ensure that they're not exposed, but then to be ready for all the things that they want to do once all of that information and data is centralized in the tenant. It is going to save them a ton of time and a ton of money in the long term. So I think it's really important to take that into consideration, especially in an AI world where this data is a gold mine today. Everybody wants to access it and use it. And so if you're not benefiting from doing all of this work and doing it the right way, it's going to be hard to move quick and stay ahead against your competition.
And speaking of a gold mine of data, contact centers have a lot of data. So let's talk a little bit about the parity around contact centers and how the new native contact center, how we're shifting improvement around the contact center and how we can improve things like integration and capture those KPIs. Steven, can you talk a little bit about contact centers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think contact center as a term in general is doing a 180, because what we think and understand and know about contact center today is shifting really quickly in an AI world. The notion that you have to line up everything in a queue and wait and have specific reporting on that sort of goes out the window when you could approach an agent, a virtual agent, talk in natural language and get your response. And there's some organizations that do that really well. And so that is changing really the face about how we think about delivering customer service and experience. What's interesting when we speak about customers, whether it's retail or any industry, is the fact that in the past, you used to have a one-size-fits-all, and your highest level required expertise or level of service or application, the most complex, became your lowest common denominator, which meant contact center was super expensive in a traditional world. In a cloud world and in an AI world, you could have 4 or 5 different types of service or offerings for a call center to cater to the service required at that particular moment. So think about, internal help desk versus your customer service help desk versus your salespeople versus, your accounts payable and receivable. All may have very different needs. In the past, you had to have a one size fits all. Now you can have 4 different types of applications, all integrated together, all directly correlated and leveraging the same phone system. So you're saving money, you're being efficient on money, I would say, and you could provide the service where it needs to be. And then when you start talking about what's possible with AI, not just on the transcription and guarding the data and figuring out, sentiment, how the call went, being able to analyze it after, but even the real-time agent assist capabilities that are available today to ensure that that agent not only has a supervisor there whispering and helping them, supporting them on a call, but accessing the thousands or hundreds of thousands of calls that have gone by in the past to present that agent with real-time information so they can know the customer that's on the call, know the history on the call, and provide better service in real time. I mean, the advancements here are huge, and we're at the infancy stage of what we're really seeing today. So it is a super exciting space. That's why it's so hot and interesting. My caution to businesses is try and get clear on what's important. We've seen, and Connie, you may be able to relate, too many customers try and adapt their needs to the technology as opposed to leveraging the tech to address their needs. And maybe in the past, it was more difficult because the technology was somewhat siloed and restrictive. Today, the customers can have their cake and eat it too. And that's a really important thing to consider and think about as you move forward on this strategy.
Stephen, I love how you put that. Connie, what would you like to add?
Actually, Stephen, you did a really great job summarizing that. So I'll just add a couple of things here and what we're seeing too. To your point, all of the traditional capabilities that customers wanted for contact center, like Whisper, Bard, all of those things are available in Microsoft Teams today. It is a relatively new feature and capability. But the other thing I'm seeing is a couple of things. One, the integration across multiple CRMs and being able to bring that communication so that when a call comes in, I already have context of what the customer is asking for. Additionally, because we're able to leverage translation and transcription, I no longer have to sit there and feverishly take notes. Instead, I can actually listen to what the customer is asking for. And oh, by the way, I may need to transfer this person over to somebody else who has a different expertise. No problem. I've already captured all of the information from the customer, and I can even blind transfer that call versus consultatively transfer that call. And as a customer, the one thing that irritates me the most is having to repeat myself and give information all over again. So that saves time, it's a better customer experience, and all of these things are woven into the technology I have. Plus, because we are able to leverage AI and APIs, so the app integrations, it doesn't matter what CRM system I'm using anymore. It doesn't matter, some of the other pieces and APIs that I have built to customize my solution. I can easily integrate those things into my overall strategy. And I think the key here is you need a platform, right? Microsoft is that platform. It's a cloud-based solution. I have all of the 5 nines, but I can also bring in all of these other components. And then as AI grows and develops, these are areas where I can then embed all of this into my overall strategy. And as I think about transforming 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, I already have that foundation.
Thank you, Connie. And I know that we've touched a little bit on AI. So I think because it is such a hot topic, we have to cover it. The power of agentic AI. What is the path to get there when you start with a Teams phone? And how can AI features such as Copilot save Teams time? Can you share some examples, Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, look, just as we were talking about the call center, I think it's worth spending a couple of minutes just keep building on this. So before I jump into the agentic side, well, that's actually, I shouldn't say that. It's related. One of the biggest challenges for businesses around the contact center has been the turnover for agents and things like that, and training and constant training and trying to get those human agents to do what they want them to do. But a lot of the requests that come in are pretty standard in the same thing all the time. Like there's not 100 different requests coming in that customers want. I bet if we actually sat down and tried to brainstorm, we'd probably have a hard time getting to a list that's bigger than 10 things. So when you think about how can we get really clear on what those are, and from an agentic AI perspective, have a virtual agent be able to process those requests and get the end customer back the information they need in almost real time, this is going to game change for the end users to get great service, but for the businesses as well to not be at the mercy of their human agents. And this isn't about, not wanting those people can be repurposed if they want to be or not. But the fact of the matter is, it is a massive cost for businesses to support, um, fund the resources in those organizations and train them. This agentic AI is already starting to make massive, massive changes. And the winning proof is that the customers are happy and getting the results that they want. So I think that is really going to be huge. I think what we're seeing also on the agentic AI side, part of the reason it's going to be so successful is we don't have to get humans to change their behavior. It's challenging. As we all know, everyone here on the call, myself, maybe number one, change is tough to adopt. When we're in this agentic kind of AI space and you're able to automate these workflows, we don't have to depend on others buying in, picking it up, getting used to it, and doing it the right way. Having these agents be able to run 24/7 and keep getting better based on the data that we see, it's a game changer and it's real life and it's starting to happen. We've seen a lot of businesses start to employ that internally on their process to kind of test it out, get comfortable with it, because maybe the perceived risk in some cases could be late. But as we see more and more of these things come out to affect and deal with end users to run business, it is massive and is only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, as Connie alluded to.
Connie, would you like to share some examples?
I would love to. Actually, I'll share a couple. I think one of the top of mind for me is Lumen. They internally are using Copilot plus Teams Phone and all goodness that comes out of some of our modern workplace stack in order to be able to transform their sales organization. So when they researched a customer and then jumped on a call with them, it would take up to 4 hours of research prior to having a conversation with the customer. That is now 30 minutes. They have estimated that this is adding to their bottom line, so reducing operational costs, but also improving their sales engagement to the tune of around $50 million a year. Now, keep in mind, that's using the same amount of people, but they're just able to do more and more so efficiently. The other example that I would use is the ability to be able to streamline some of our processes. I think of there's just so many areas, but like manufacturing. So if I'm able to be able to streamline finding and locating a part for an airplane or being able to manage invoices more efficiently, I'm not having to make phone calls and back office people trying to manually locating parts or invoices. Plus, guess what? We're seeing like one particular company, they saw a 39% improvement in error reduction. So also finding errors much quicker. One of my favorite examples, though, is the way Holland America is using Teams Phone as well as agents in order to be able to help customers locate and identify the right cruise. What they were finding is customers go in, they're looking for a specific cruise, but then they all abandoned it because the dates and the voyages that they were looking for weren't exactly what they wanted. Well, AI is coming in over the top and saying, hey, were you looking for something like this? I have a few recommendations. And then it would also loop into their IVR system to then be able to take a customer service call to be able to close a deal. They're seeing around 11% increase in bookings because they're able to blend these things together and help customers find what they're looking for, as well as improve their overall bottom line.
That's phenomenal. If we reconvene a year from now, which upcoming telephony innovations, whether deeper Copilot integration, advanced analytics, or new endpoints, do you expect will most dramatically shift the efficiency conversation? Steven.
So in my mind, there's two things. There's one, the real time leverage of this voice technology, whether you're in a meeting or on a call, and providing what is considered agent assist, but not just for contact center agents, for us. If I met Connie 2 months ago and we talked about a couple of things, and then I speak to her again today, to be able to have that information brought to me at my fingertips, and then to see that, hey, Connie just posted about this on LinkedIn and she's speaking about that over there, to arm me to be as informed as I can to have the right conversation and leverage that with Connie. I think what we're going to see to leverage real-time voice and communications is going to be massive. And then to be able to analyze the analytics after, to provide me insights to capture the real to-dos, not just to-dos after a meeting, but to get deep into it and get the sentiment analysis, but from the company, not just from individually, to match it, let's say from a sales team, not just one seller to help train that person, but to get the global view of every sales conversation we had, and what are our customers saying, and what are they asking, and what do they care about? How are they responding to the things that our sales team said, just using ourselves as an example, I think is going to be massive. And the shift, and Microsoft is starting to talk a little bit about this, but I think we're going to hear about it a lot next year, is this notion of everybody sort of becoming AI literate over the course of the next 12 months. And Microsoft uses the term customer zero a lot. I think it went from eat your own dog food to drink your own champagne to customer zero, but this is kind of the coolest one, I guess. Everybody stepping up their AI game is going to just make it more prolific and more real across the board. And those are kind of the three things that I see are going to be massive differences over the next 12 months.
Thank you, Steven. Connie, what about you? What do you think is going to most dramatically shift the efficiency conversation?
Wow. I have been in the telephony business for 18 years, as I mentioned, and I am just really amazed at the innovation that is happening and at the speed in which customers are taking advantage of it, and our partners like Steven and Ziro are using it to help customers transform their business. I think the one thing that I would really say is I think in a year from now, we're going to see all of these things converge even more. These are going to become much more ubiquitous as far as how communications and all of the different modalities, whether it's chats, meetings, calling, how I work with the customer. To me, that is going to be the biggest impact, is going to be around where our customer service capabilities can improve organizations and their bottom lines. So that's where I think we're going to see the most growth and some of the more dramatic changes that are going to impact businesses, taking advantage both of communication optimization as well as things that AI can bring to the table.
Thank you, Connie. And last question of the day is, what is the one thing that you would like our audience to take away from the discussion? Steven.
For me, it's think about this system, don't or stop thinking about this as a phone system. I think that is the biggest mistake and biggest opportunity for a business at the same time. If you consider it as a phone system and that thing that's in the closet on the side, and we got to get this in there because we have to have these things ring and people talk, you're missing out on a massive opportunity. If you really think about this as part of a critical communication strategy that affects the growth of your business, the experience your customers are happening, and how valuable that data is from all of these conversations that are happening in your org, out externally and internally, you'll see how much of a under the covers opportunity is this to really grow the business and be successful. So that would be my number one takeaway to share.
What about you, Connie?
I underscore what Steven just said. I think too, it's thinking about strategy versus a particular product. So think broadly. What are those high value, low complexity scenarios in your organization that you can quickly optimize how you communicate, and where you think AI can drive some of that integration? Thinking about those back end systems, right, that have all of this data that really isn't defined, and how you can help bring in some of those insights and trends to then go help build that strategy. I also recommend working with partners like Ziro and Steven in his organization, because they can help you. If you don't know where to begin, where to get started, go bring in these experts. They have deep knowledge and expertise. Take advantage of that.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Connie. Thank you, Steven, for joining us today. I am very excited to hear what the audience thought of our conversation, and hopefully we can do this again and take it on the road.
Sure. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you, Liza. Thank you, Steven.
Thank you.